Following on from my last video, I am so pleased to say that I am back on track. I have put aside my doubts and I already have found myself thinking about my 2026 growing season. And this is undoubtedly largely thanks to you guys, thanks to you, my YouTube supporters. I am so incredibly grateful to you all for taking the time to send me such supportive, motivational and generally just very kind comments. And not only that, an absolutely massive thank you goes out to those of you that have supported both me and my channel on the Buy Me a Coffee platform. You really are incredibly special people, and it's so hard to put into words just how much your generosity means to me. I can now report to you, because I'm sure a lot of you are curious, and I can let you know that I did let the organisers of the market know that I didn't really want to attend the Christmas pitch that I paid for. And actually, the organiser, she was a lovely lady and she was so understanding. She said it was absolutely fine. She said she's got a waiting list and she was more than happy to refund me the cost of the pitch. So honestly, I cannot tell you what a huge relief it is to know that I don't need to go to it. So I definitely am not. I think for me, markets are out and I'm going to stick to what I know, which is my online sales. So with past events absolutely well and truly behind me, and I'm just sort of getting over my cold now. I'm still a little bit chesty, but we're nearly there. I have found the motivation to get back into the cut flower patch, which is definitely my happy place. We have been having such a dry start to the season, and it's really made me so glad that I did some succession sowing this year. I'm almost a bit annoyed with myself that I didn't do a little bit more, because everything is all going mad flowering now, and I'm not sure it's all going to keep flowering now into September. So I wish I had had a few more younger plants on the go, ready for that later flowering. I had been really good at doing my sunflower sowing every 2 weeks, and the first 2 lots have pretty much flowered out now, and my 3rd lot growing on nicely, but my 4th lot has been a little bit eaten by slugs, and that's not even in the ground yet, so that's been eaten in its little pots. I've cut back my first succession of corn flowers and corn cockles that were in the tunnel, and also my Amimagus, because I've now got second successions of those things flowering out here in the cut flower patch. Another thing that I wish I had have done more of, so I'm pleased that I did this succession sowing, and I'm really pleased that I decided to chop back some of my perennials, i.e. the Chelsea chop. But I wish I had have done that to the feverfew, and I'm really kicking myself that I didn't, because of course all my feverfew has flowered all in one go, and now I'll have to wait quite a long time before I get a second cut. Whereas if I had have cut some of it back like I did with my Tamaca the Pearl, my Killia the Pearl, and also my Oregano, then I would have some flowers a little bit later on. And next year I need to do more of that. And some ideas that I've been having for the cut flower patch for 2026 is actually to go in even harder on perennials. So we all know that I have quite a lot of perennials already. They make up about 75% of the flowers that I cut, and I want to raise that quite a lot, because I think for the style of bouquets that I'm making and the style, well, the way that my business operates, I like to have lots of different things growing, And growing with annuals, sometimes that can be a lot of hard work, and this year more so than others because it's just been so dry. So it's been really hard to get my annuals off to a good start. And the main reason I haven't already perennialised more of my garden is just because this end down here is really wet in the winter, and I never really want my perennials to get really wet feet. So one thing that I'd probably have to do in order to grow perennials down this lower end of the garden is to actually put in raised beds, which is an additional expense. So I will have to really consider whether or not that's something I can afford to do. But I do think it will make, it will really lessen my workload if I've got more perennials in, which, because this is still a side hustle and I cannot dedicate as much time to it as I would like, I think that perennials are the way forward. Do you agree or do you disagree? I will always have some space for annuals, but I'm thinking of reducing it down to probably keeping the 3 low tunnel beds for annuals. And then I'm thinking actually I might make this really long back bed that goes right along the back. I might make that annuals, but then go ahead and put, I mean, I've already started putting this bed to perennials, although there's a few annuals in there as well. But then I would be putting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 beds. They're 5-metre beds, so I'd be putting 6 5-metre beds to perennials. What do you think? Good idea? Bad idea? Love to hear your thoughts on that. I've already filled an online basket with lots of perennial seeds, so you can tell I'm feeling quite serious about it, because also I'd quite like to get some of those seeds sown now, along with my biennials. My biennials are actually doing really well. I will put in some clips. Because I've been really struggling growing things in pots, I had an ingenious idea to use, I think it's matting for sort of, you put it on grass and you can drive cars and things on. It's probably got a name. I'll pop the name in. I got given it. And I didn't cut it to size. I had help. Someone's cut it to size for me to fit into a gravel tray, for which I've put sheep's wool underneath. And yes, it means if we get a lot of rain, I do have to tip the water out. But I'm just finding the plants are rooting down well, and it's just retaining moisture a lot better. Which, if I dare to put in the footage of my winged everlasting seedlings, which I have now killed because I didn't keep watering them. This system seems to work for me. It's a lazy system. If my ambition to perennialise my garden is going to come to fruition, then I need to order those seeds. But it's still, I haven't completely decided. So my greenhouse, Ami Majus, which was the first succession, has been cut down, and you can see I've got another nice succession here. But the funny thing is, some of the second and third successions have more or less caught up with each other. So this was the second, the one I just showed you here. And then behind me here, this was the third, which is already flowering. It's not quite as tall. And in fact, how tall are your annuals this year? Lots of mine are nowhere near as tall as they were last year. And in fact, with, for example, the Levatra, I will put in a clip of my Levatra last year because it is considerably shorter. I mean, it's still perfectly usable length stems, but it's just nowhere near as tall as it was last year. The only thing that I'd say is as tall as normal is the dill. Which actually, do you know what? Now I say that, I don't think it is as tall as normal. Okay, so here's, see, I have to sort of squat down. You wouldn't normally have to squat down. Now, funnily enough, do you remember I didn't have any dill seeds, so I was going to grow something called false fennel, which I did, and then I panicked and I bought dill seeds because I thought, oh, what if I don't like the false fennel? But I'm not sure I can tell the difference. So I've got them both in here. Now, one of them is definitely labelled as dill, but it all looks the same to me. So this has got a label and this says it's definitely dill, which, yeah, it looks like dill. I mean, this just isn't, I wonder if they smell different. I thought this might look a little bit different. Is this, but no, really, the general consensus is that I cannot tell the difference between the false fennel or the dill. Maybe it's got a different fragrance that I need to investigate further. This bed hasn't been weeded, so forgive me, but this is Cynoglossum. I've got some flowering the cottage garden, which I've been cutting from, but I'm quite pleased these are going to be a bit later. This is the only bed I haven't weeded, so I need to get in here. Can you see I've got my second succession of chickpeas coming here? Some of that would already be okay for little jars. I've already shown you the Ami. And then this is another succession of the Gold of Pleasure. And then another succession of Greek cress. And we've got a little bit of Phacelia in here as well. My dahlias are struggling because do you know what? It's my fault. I just haven't been doing slug patrols. So I've got no one to blame but myself. That's a bit of a rubbish one there. Is that supposed to be? Well, that's a bit disappointing. Where's the label? Where is the label? The labels of all the birds have all got rid of them. That's yellow Jill. I put the labels further out away from the dahlias because once the dahlias get big you can never see the labels, but I've lost the label for that one anyway. Well, I don't know who it's supposed to be, but it's fair to say it's a bit disappointing. Oh, and I've lost a dahlia here, which I hadn't realised. Oh no, I wonder who that was. Oh, here we are. Oh, it was the Kegel Anne. It was, oh look, you're all going to be so angry with me because that was one. I mean, the other one is still alive, but it's pretty wimpy. Yeah, it's not a particularly strong specimen, but now I only have one of those because I've lost one. These ones are a bit stronger, a bit healthier. And these ones are Blight and Everest. They look a lot better. But generally speaking, no, my dahlias don't look great. Fingers crossed, because obviously they're the things that I do rely on later on in the season. And I have got a bucket wedding to do in September, so I really need those to be growing on well. Okay, so I can't remember where I ordered my Wine-Eyed Jill from, but I can tell you now that looking at these buds, there is no way that these dahlias are Wine-Eyed Jill. And actually I'm a bit annoyed because when you order a specific dahlia, it's because you want that specific colour, but look at these buds. And look, so that was Wine-Eyed Jill. This one, Wine-Eyed Jill, apparently. Oh, unbelievable. And do you know what? These aren't right either. It's the same company because these are supposed to be Yellow Jill. Oh, I mean, it's possibly, but I mean, I've grown Yellow Jill before and I don't ever remember it budding up like that. I can't remember who I ordered my dahlias with, but I won't complain because I'm just not one to do that, but I just wouldn't order dahlias from them again. I know I stopped ordering dahlias from another company. In fact, how about you? How many companies have you stopped buying dahlia tubers from because they've got gall? Because I've had that. Before you even plant them, I've had to bin them. Or you've been given the wrong dahlia, because I think it happens far too often. I tell you who's the best that I find, and I always buy cuttings from them, I've never bought the tubers, is Halls of Heddon in the UK. I've never had anything from them that wasn't what it was supposed to be. So the Killia is just starting to flower now. Really, a bit like the feverfew, you need these shoots here to be coloured up, otherwise they will wilt. But what you can do, if you're desperate for it, is just cut off the side shoots that are not fully open to get it to hold. But if you don't, those bits will wilt. So this was my first 2 successions of the Sunflower Premier Orange Up, and you can see the gaps are where I've cut them. These ones, oh look, there's a teeny tiny one here. These ones just were ready at the wrong time. If I didn't have an order, they didn't get cut. And I've just left them there really, because they're pretty. More Killia. And then here is my daisy, which some years is brilliant and other years it's a bit bug attacked. This year is a little bit bug attacked. So I tend not to use it so much, because even like the brown marks, which is probably just where bugs have been to the toilet on it, are not particularly nice. But if it's got teeth marks in it, you know, it just isn't perfect enough for me to use. So some years I cut and cut and cut this. This year is not one of them. This was my second succession of the Gold of Pleasure, but it started to yellow now and I just didn't get to cut that in time. So we've got another succession of sunflowers here, which were in with some Lark Spur, which really just didn't look very good. It all went quite yellow, and I just thought I'll use that space for the sunflowers, which is what I've done. And this is the second succession of cornflowers, which are followed on from the ones that I had in the polytunnel. And then in here where the first succession of Gold of Pleasure was, I've got some Lavatra. And it's funny because the ones this side over here are doing a lot better than the ones on the end here. I mean, this one looks really rubbish, and I'm not sure why. But anyway, that'll be good. Although they are budding up even shorter than the blush, which is over. These are going to be the pink. This is Silver Cup, so they're a bit brighter. This is my third succession of Nigella. Again, a lot shorter stems than I would like. And the first succession, which was in the tunnel here, has now gone to seed, and I'm using the seed pods in any of my orders. And then the other succession, which was outside, has also gone to seed. Now this is the biggest disaster in the garden. Look at it. So we need to get in here, we need to get in here and clear this out. And I'm thinking about direct sowing something that could potentially give me some flowers in September for that September wedding. So I'll have a little think about what I might sow in there. Now, I've never really had my rat's tail statice much taller than this, but actually this is, if you cut right down deep into the plant, that's ample for a bouquet. But I did see on the Common Farm Flowers recent tour, the rat's tail statice grown in the tunnel, and it was much taller. Whether or not I would need to grow it in the tunnel if it'd be necessary, but it was just quite nice to see how tall it could get. Then we've got the Helictrum here. I have cut some, but I do need to come out and cut some more. Amaranthus has had a haircut because I want to encourage the side shoots now. We've got Hot Biscuits, and I don't think this is Red Army, I think this is Ushberg. Red Army isn't quite so purple, it's a little bit more red. Status is starting, and then I need to come and put a second layer of staking around here, because we've got some more cornflowers here that are just flopping over the place. And then this is another little succession I've got of corn cockles, because I've cut back the ones in the tunnels now. And then I've done a really dismal job of my Winged Everlasting this year, because I only managed to get 2 plants out into the garden, and then I had a whole load of seedlings, which I mentioned earlier, if I've already put that clip in, which I've killed. So, but I've already got some perennial seed for a perennial version of that, which my intention is to grow that anyway. Now, I don't know if you remember, I've been growing a few things for the first time this year. This is one of them. This is, let's find a flower so that you can see. Okay, here we are. So this is the salpiglossis. So I've cut some because before I put it in any sort of bouquets, I need to establish when to cut it. Do you cut it in bud? Do I cut it when it's open? And how long the vase life is. You know, is it going to be for event work or is it going to be for retail? So I did cut some yesterday and I've been conditioning that, and I will keep that for myself in a vase and just see how long it lasts. And I cut it all at various different stages. If you've used the salpiglossis yourself in cut flower work before, it'd be great if you could give me some info on that. What was the vase life like? Do you still grow it? What do you use it for? And then the other thing I grew but hasn't really worked out particularly well, and I chopped it all down yesterday, was this red linaria. There are some little things that I do think are worth growing for adding, you know, that little bit of detail to bouquets. One of those that I grew for the first time this year, which I think is great for that, is the Omphalloides. But this probably isn't one of them. I don't think I'll grow this again. I deadheaded it all off yesterday, so I haven't cut any of it at all. The Omphalloides, although it's all gone to seed, here we are. Great in buttonholes and hair combs and bridal work, but it's a bit like the Cynoglossum. You need to cut it, you know, when it's got the seeds visible in the pods like this. There's a seed pod. I think it's worth growing that again. Another thing I like in that same sort of respect is candy tuft. Again, I probably only need a little pot of it. And do you remember last year I grew Killia? I quite like that for that as well. I think if I could find somewhere just to have some of these little details, the Killia, the Omphalloides and the candy tuft, those things are lovely in buttonholes and hair combs and things, but I probably don't need to actually designate space in a bed for them. So my sweet peas have been really pretty rubbish this year. Again, it just got hot too quickly. I've already had to take the pots away. They've gone to seed. Just couldn't keep them watered. The ones that are in the ground, the ones that I planted out first, have done the best. I will pop in, I think I've got some footage of me deadheading those. But then these ones here on archway are really rubbish. And last year this archway looked so pretty. So I'm a little bit disappointed, but actually with perennials in mind, I'm thinking about putting perennial sweet peas there. I know they don't have the scent, but generally I only use the sweet peas in event work. And what I want is the tendrils with the flowers. It really probably doesn't need to be the lovely annuals. I know I love them and they're lovely, but the perennials would probably work for what I want to do just the same. So possibly, that's not a seed that's in the basket yet, but it could happen. Watch this space. I'm going to get down low enough so we can see the phlox together. So this is my favourite cut flower. And yes, when I grow a very limited selection of annuals, I will still grow the annual phlox. And I'm a bit undecided about the perennial phlox. I may grow it, I may just grow the annual, but look at it, I love it. Unfortunately, the Moody Blues has turned out to be a bit shorter. So although I love the blue colour, that one's over here, it's just a lot shorter. So next year I'll stick to these taller varieties. And obviously, I just love the cherry caramel. So then I also made a terrible mistake here, because I thought if I throw a load of poppy seeds in here, that I would still get to the rainbow quartet stock were in here. But do you know what? They haven't worked out. They've just gone a bit weird. So in fact, my stock this year, a bit like the sweet peas, I think it just got a bit hot. So my autumn sown stock were fine. They were really good. But then the spring sown ones, they were just really quite short. They were just nowhere near the same length of stem that I'd usually have. I love stock, but I don't know whether I will put space to it or not. Have a think about that. We've already seen the Salpoglossis, a little bit of Rogue Killia here. I've got another succession of amaranth in here of various colours. Look, my weeding's not great, is it? Get rid of that. And my straw flowers, obviously, they're branching out now because I cut them, and now we're going to get another flush of flowers from those. Largely pink this year, not such a good selection of colours, but then I haven't got as many plants as I usually have. And then the xanthemum is a lot better this year. It's much happier here in this bed where it's got a bit more space. It's not being crowded by other things. And the plants are much, much stronger. So I'm hoping this is going to give me some lovely flowers for drying. And a big fail on the argyratum this year. I've got one argyratum plant. But actually, I don't think I'm going to miss that. And I'm not sure if I was only growing a few annuals, I don't think argyratum would be on the list. This bed, which doesn't get the sun until later in the day, so it's shaded from that early morning sun, the Lark Spur look a lot greener and lusher and happier because it's just a bit cooler. And actually the snapdragons seem to be doing okay as well. So that's the Chantilly bronze, and this is Chantilly something else, but I can't remember what. Oh look, more weeds. And this is, we've already seen the Omphalodes, and this is a self-sown Amimajus. And then we have got some Rudbeckia Saharas that have survived after the slug attacks. Some of them obviously doing a lot better than others. Interestingly, the ones that are closer to the other plants seem to be doing better than the ones that are out there on their own. So the Coropsis is just starting to get these little teeny tiny buds. I'm really excited about this because I've not grown it before. So I'm really looking forward to that flowering. Oh gosh, we've got some big old weeds in here. This, actually, I didn't weed this bed yet either. More little bit of bronze fennel there. But this is, do you remember I'm growing those sunflowers, Mexican sunflowers? This is those there. And this is supposed to be the quinoa, but is this just a weed? Just looks like a weed to me. I think I might have just grown a weed. And I'm not sure what's happened in here, but this was where my first succession of Dorcas was. And it's almost as if it's vanished. I just cannot see it in there anywhere. So, yeah, I'm not sure what happened, but I think that was the one that would have had some of the Purple Kisses variety in it. But there's no evidence of it growing in there at all. So, yeah, that's a bit sad. That means I've only got one succession of Dorcas instead of two. It's looking like all of my Dorcas is going to be white this year. And I'm not going to have any of the purple one. But never mind, each year is different. It's makes it more fun, doesn't it? I'm a bit disappointed with my double click cranberry Cosmos. It's not quite as double click as I thought it was going to be. It's quite single. Apricotta, of course, was the first to flower and is already starting to get to work. That lovely colour for events. And then we've got a second succession of the Crown Daisy here. The first succession I've gone ahead and cut back so that then I can hopefully have a continuous supply, because when I finish cutting this one, hopefully the first one will have another flush on it again. So then this bed is the Beplurum, which is all gone to seed fairly quickly, again just because of the heat. Then we've got our scabious. There's a nice bronze fennel in there, and I'm thinking that bronze fennel will be the perennial I'll have and that I won't grow dill anymore. And then we've got Lark Spur in here. Look, this is self-sown because I haven't grown any of this salvia clary sage this year. but that's quite nice. So yeah, we've got some calendula in here, that's self-sown. Lark Spur, and again, the Lark Spur is a lot shorter than normal. You know, normally I need these higher supports in to hold things in, but not so much this year. We've already seen that. Okay, and then over here we've got our annual phlox, and look, a tomato. In fact, I've got odd bits of veg creeping up everywhere. I've grown lots of veg in the past. I mean, this could be, who are the veg experts? Because I haven't grown it for a few years, but this is obviously all from my homemade compost. Is this a kale or a broccoli? What do you think? I have noticed the cabbage white butterflies in here, so I'm sure whatever it is, I won't get to eat any of it. And then the roses have been so productive, but I've been giving them some fairly heavy cutting back, which is hence the wheelbarrow. And the timeless ones are great. Yeah, you know, that's a lovely colour. That's the timeless cream. So I'm really pleased. With those. And this is the great thing about growing thornless raspberries for foliage, is that when you're in the cut flower patch and you get a little bit peckish, you can just pick yourself some raspberries. And I don't know if you grow raspberries, but my raspberries are delicious this year. You know, some years they're tastier than others, but no, they're really very good. It's the only trouble I get the seed stuck in my teeth, but very good. So I've cut back a lot of the biennials that were down here, although I have left this sweet rocket because I wouldn't mind that doing a little bit of self-seeding. And the same for my honesty that wasn't caterpillared, although I haven't got very much of it. And then we've got a Killia here, which, because it's in the shade, hasn't really sent up any flower spikes yet. This feverfoo isn't very good, and that's because this was second year. I tend to grow it fresh every year, and it's much healthier. You can see there aren't really any rosettes or greenery at the bottom. That all really wants ripping out. And then I can put some new perennials in there. The sedum, very tall in comparison to everything else being very short. Lovely tall stems, and lovely buds. The grasses I didn't cut enough of. They've all gone to seed. The Veronica, looking lovely. Quite often I have problems with the Veronica with powdery mildew, but so far so good. Then this is, I grew from seed, my sea lavender, so my perennial limonium. I'm going to grow some more of that. Even though I haven't had it flower yet and I haven't used it, I'm going to grow some more because I can't see that I wouldn't like it. And then we've got the gooseneck loosestrife, it's just coming, so we've just started cutting. This was the oregano I Chelsea chopped. And you can see where we're flowering over there, where I didn't Chelsea chop, we've got a little bit of delay here. And then the obedient plant, looking lovely and lush and healthy, but no signs of flowers there yet, which is good because we don't want everything flowering all at once. We need to try and hold some things back. If annual phlox, you can't see me because of my cap, I am sorry. I don't like getting a burnt face. If annual phlox is my favourite annual cut flower, then here we are. Tamica, Killia, the pearl is my favourite perennial cut flower. And then in here, I grew from seed again. I'm always chuffed when I grow something from seed. This is my echinops. And of course I have plans to have a whole section of the echinopsis, so we'll sow some more of that. And then we've got a whole load of gladioli in here trying to come up, but this was biennials, which again have been cut back, but we've just still got some Sweet William gonna come in. So yeah, that'll be great when we get some more flowers from there. And then see, this is a nice usable Canterbury bell. I've got an order actually. I should have cut that when I cut yesterday. Maybe I'll sneak out and get that one in a minute. And then I've got some more scabious here, but I mean, I have sown the perennial, but I think these look like annuals to me. I need to label things a little bit better. So anyway, here we are. So here's how we're looking. So it's nice, there's a bit of colour out here. And yeah, all in all, with how dry it's been, it could be worse. But as I say, my major concern now is whether or not we will still have any flowers in September. So the tunnel's a bit of a disaster. I don't know why I decided to do the marigolds again. I've really, I mean, to be fair, they look terrible. So maybe it's not a good example of them, but we've got marigolds there. I'll tell you what looks fantastic. I've never grown scabious in the tunnel. Look at this. My outside scabious is never as big flowered as this. I think for me, if I am going to grow annual scabious, which I'm thinking I'm probably going to grow the perennial, but I may be tempted to grow a little bit in the tunnel, because this colour, this is the Fata Morgana. For me, when I grow it outside, it always looks a bit beaten up because of the weather. But I mean, just look at that colour. I mean, that's just fantastic. So the slugs ate the zinnias, my favourite ones, the Queen Lime Orange. I think I've got about 2 left that haven't been eaten. And this was, where's the label? It's called Zenyas Scabiosa Mix, and the flowers are supposed to look, I don't know, a bit scabiosa. They're just rubbish. They're just horrible singles. They're not very big. Last year my zinnias were great, but I'm a bit disappointed with those. So yeah, maybe I'll try and sow some more for September and put them in here. I've got my mint here. I tend not to use my mint until it flowers. The stems are a bit firmer and more solid then, and I find it holds better in water. I find if I cut it too early in the spring, it's quite prone to wilting. And I mean, one of my favourite things to cut this year was definitely the Crimson Loose Strife, and I grew it from seed, so again I was chuffed, and I definitely would like some more of that. I really love the colour, and it was great earlier on in the season, so it was really useful. Thanks again for joining me this week for a little whip round the cut flower patch. Next videos I've been working on is I'm going to do some videos on the different sizes of bouquets that I make and how I make them. And some of the flowers that we were cutting in today's video are the flowers that we'll be using to put together to make those bouquets. So that's coming up. I'll start editing that shortly. But this one, I'm sorry it's a bit late because I wasn't very well. I was just a bit slow on actually getting out and getting the tour done. But I hope you enjoyed it. Do let me know in the comments what you think about the whole perennial idea. I'd love to know. And of course, as always, if you did like the video, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you aren't already subscribed to the channel and you'd like to follow my growing, my gardening, my cut flower journey, then you can of course hit subscribe. And if you'd like to contribute at all towards the making of these videos, if you found anything helpful or useful, then there's a link in the description to buy me a coffee. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.